Welcome everybody to the Popdoc podcast. Today I'm interviewing Olympia Stone, who directed the original Richard McMahon, which I personally really enjoyed. It was a very fast 20 minutes. When I finished it, I was just kind of like, oh man, this is already over. Like, I want to see more into this man's life.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So, the first question that is probably on everybody's mind is, how in the world did you find this guy?
So Richard, like a lot of the films I've made, there was definitely an organic process. I was screening a film that I had just finished about a different artist in Charleston, South Carolina, and at a place called the Halsey Institute of Art, which is a super amazing museum. And the curator there, whose name is Mark Sloan, said to me, I have your next film. You've got to look into this guy. And he described him to me as being like a savant. And in fact, this curator, Mark Sloan, had given Richard a show of the mini museum, I think in 2009, which was the first time anybody, I think first and basically only time the thing had ever been exhibited in public. And Mark just said he's really interesting and I can give you his email if you are interested. And just the description of him and looking, because Mark in his office had he had like the mini Van Gogh, the Starry Night. And I just thought, this is really intriguing. So I really almost immediately reached out to Richard and said, hey, I'm a filmmaker, be really interested in talking to you more. We set up some phone calls. And after I talked to him, I became even more intrigued. And then, one thing led to another. And he agreed that he would be, willing to participate in a film. And we just went from there.
So what's, definitely interesting about this artist is that he makes miniature works of past paintings and artworks throughout history. I mean, he's almost as much of a historian as he is an artist. But what was it about him that you felt like the story needed to be told? Because as a director and a filmmaker, you are going to be dedicating, I would imagine, at least 6 months of your life to this process.
You hit it on the nose. This was the fastest film I ever made. And because usually my films are run in like 6 years. So this was 6 months. And that really was a record for me. But it also, I think, speaks to how organically it all came together and then flowed. Because the thing about Richard that I got very early on, so I make films about art and artists and the artistic process. And out of that, I would say I am really intrigued by people who are obsessed, who are driven to make something just because. It's not for money, it's not for fame. It's because they feel a need to express themselves in this way. And Richard was the fact that he had just boxes and boxes of thousands of these incredible paintings, and some of them were so beautifully done. And the fact also that he is working with nothing, like recycled cardboard and, a few paints from Walmart when he could get the money together to afford to buy that. I just thought, personally for me, I just find that so inspiring that like somebody will just dedicate themselves to doing that. And I thought it was such an ambitious project too. And the fact that he can tell you about every single piece and the year it was made and like he can just unfurl a whole story about not only Picasso. Okay, a lot of people could maybe replicate a Picasso and tell you about Picasso's life, but really obscure artists who I'd never heard of, and not like I'm the art expert, but I know a fair amount about art and art history, and there were plenty of artists in there that I just had never even heard of before. And I just thought it was he just did everything so well. And then even like the Beatles posters that he did, or, just these offshoots, James Bond movies that he replicated, like whole sets of these like James Bond movies, these little like mini spaceship things and whatever. I mean, it just went on and on and on. And for a filmmaker, it's like, God, the possibilities of that were just so exciting.
You bring up another, I think, interesting point to documentary filmmaking. With most people, they have a story and you have to edit down that story and distill it into something that's interesting. In your case, if he had literally had, thousands or hundreds of boxes and thousands of materials of stuff, how did you choose out of everything that he had done, which pieces to put in this story? Because it was only 20 minutes.
That was hard. But there was also, frankly, like time and budget constraints, right? So we didn't have time to go through every single box. Frankly, it was kind of random. He had some boxes in storage and he like pulled them out and he started going through them. And I found enough in there that I was like, oh, there's the Maori, replication of the Maori boat and a de Kooning, or, just like these amazing, just the amazing variety with what he was pulling out in front of me, and the quality of what I was seeing. I felt very satisfied that we didn't actually have to go into every box. I mean, in a different world, just to document it, I think it would have been wonderful to do that. And someday I hope he can afford to do that, to like document each piece and put it online and have an online gallery. I think that would be awesome. As a learning tool, And the other thing that's so wonderful about Richard is he's doing it because he wants to share with people. He is excited about these things and inspired by them. And he feels like more people should, be exposed to art. And this is kind of an easy way to do it, to show people these little mini versions of something that maybe you couldn't see in the Louvre, or the National Gallery.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the ethical issues of Richard personally, right? Because you discovered this guy that feels like, a Rain Man in the art world or whatnot. And so you have to be gentle with how you approach that. He also came clearly from a very poor background, and you did a wonderful and tasteful way of presenting that in the film. I felt like at a right time, because you see this man incredibly talented, and then you see where he comes from, and you're just like, wow, I can't believe he's been creating all this artwork on his kitchen counter, because that's the only space he has. But anyway, just talk about that.
I mean, definitely there were some ethical issues that were presented with the film, and I always think the first rule for me with any documentary subject is you have the trust relationship that you have with your subject is key, because you can't make a good film, I think, without having that relationship firmly established. For me, what was important about the scene was what you said earlier, which is like the fact that he is able to make his artwork in a space that's like this, on the side of his kitchen counter, in a kitchen with like a dim light bulb, and that is the only space he has, because everything else, there is no space. It's, there's a lot of hoarding going on, clutter, and so it was quite shocking, and I really felt like it was important to treat that as respectfully as we possibly could.
There was one shot in there where I remember it was stacks and stacks of seasonings or something like that was on the table, and then there were other shots where it was gone. What is that? Was that you coming back a different day to film, or did you ask permission to move all of that stuff so that he could work, or what was that?
We did make some space so that we could do some filming without that distraction of like, what are those, cans of spices over there, but we also didn't, I was trying not to really affect the environment, but the same time, it was like trying to just clear a little bit of space so he could do the work without it being like we were altering the environment itself. I don't know if that answers your question, but.
What do you see the future is for him? Do you think that your film or any, getting to meet you is going to help him in any way in terms of getting more exposure?
I hope so. I hope that the film, I mean, I do think the film has helped him. I don't know how much. Wish it had helped him more, but I'm hopeful that he will. I think he's such a strong person in the sense that he will keep going, that he's so optimistic, and can persevere. And I think that resiliency is a really impressive quality, considering all the things, all the obstacles he's had to overcome in his life. So I think he has such a natural curiosity and drive to create things that I can't imagine that ever going away. And happily, he has people that really care about him that are going to help support him. But I do think that his resilience serves him well. And I do believe that he will continue to make amazing things. He's just a very special artistic vision, so unique.
Let's talk a little bit about the actual making of the film. So yeah, walk me down some of those choices, along with how many days it took to shoot and that kind of thing.
I worked with my camera woman who has worked with me on a number of films. Her name is Simone Keith. And the two of us, I think we had 2 shoots in Florida. We did this, pretty efficiently. There was like, and I got somebody to film an art opening that he had in New Orleans, of the mini museum. And I'm trying to think of what else. And I decided early on to include the people that were, Richard is somebody who has a circle of sort of mentors and protectors around him. People that see that he is special and want to help him and also kind of want to protect him. So I chose, Mark Cregan, who's sort of his mentor, art professor, and this woman, Amy Crane, who does a lot of arts stuff in Florida, funding grants and things like that. And so, and we did things like we went back to his old school, his high school, and we did some filming in there, a little exhibit that he had out there. But so it was pretty limited in a way. We went with him to the library because we sort of tried to follow his regular day routine. And, at the time, like he walked 2 or 3 miles to the, and he went to church every morning at like 4 a.m, and then would walk to the library, and he walked everywhere, and is, just a very different kind of existence. I'm happy to say now that he got his driver's license, which was is a big deal for him. But anyway, so his world is prescribed in a way that there weren't that many options, if you know what I mean. And so it made the choices of what to film and what not to film easy. And I think, it was pretty clear that it was going to be a short film. Like I didn't think it would ever be a feature length film. So I knew that we didn't need that much material. We just needed the right material.
Well, yeah, with that, tell me a little bit about your history as a documentarian. What number of film is this for you, and how many shorts or features have you done in the past?
This is the only short film I've made. I've just come out with my 5th feature length film, a documentary about an artist named Richard Estes, who's a photorealist painter and considered one of the founders of the photorealist movement. And my films have all been about different artists who are sort of under the radar, and who I feel like, these are not unbiased films. These are deeply biased, subjective films about the artistic process, people that I feel like we should know about, but we don't. And part of what I'm trying to do also is to make art more fun, because I feel like a lot of times art feels so pretentious and like heavy and, just not fun for most people and intimidating. And so in fact, all of the films that I've made about artists are people who have a great sense of humor and bring that into the work, that don't take themselves that seriously, you know, that can, but they're also sort of intimate portraits of artists at work, because I'm really interested in the artistic process.
Very
So
cool.
that's what I've been up to.
So, Richard, what has he been up to since making this film?
So Richard, I don't know if you can see, this is his graphic novel that he came out with about a year ago with some, it's a really interesting project. It's a memoir written in the first person about a prisoner, like somebody in prison in the like early 1972. But what's so, it's like a graphic novel. I mean, the paintings in it are really, I think, really amazing. I mean, there's a really a definite sensibility about them. And this is so classic. I don't know if you can see Richard in his prison uniform.
Did he,
you know, he
loves
like to get into costume. So this is a costume that he created.
So as our exit here, why don't you tell the audience what you have on tap next? I'm sure you're doing something.
Yeah, I have a couple of projects. One of them, completely out of left field, is I am finishing, literally like onlining and color correcting right now, a film, a feature-length film about guinea pigs. So it's called Guinea Pig Diaries. And this is a long story how this film came about. I won't get into it, but just to say that it's definitely a wonderful antidote to the insane and somewhat very stressful times that we're living through right now, because guinea pigs are so funny and they're so cute. So, so it's really about the human-animal relationship. And then I am working on a film about an artist who lives in a treehouse off an island in South Carolina, who's in her 80s, who's amazing. And unfortunately, because of the pandemic, the filming has been put on hold, but I have, you know, I'm hoping we can start filming again soon. So we'll see. But I'm about halfway, you know, through that film right now.
I hope that's a feature film, because, I mean, you had me at Treehouse Island off South Carolina. I want to see more about that.
She's so interesting. So she's another sort of under the radar, totally driven person who fascinates me, you know.
Well, Olympia, we really appreciate your time on the show. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.